Once upon a time, a girl named Felicity and a boy named Peter bought an abandoned 1830s farmhouse in New York. It is now Wednesday, October 9th, 2024. And to be honest with you guys, I kind of struggled putting this video together, not because the video is bad, but because there isn't really a theme other than bits and bobs. So after the excitement of getting the septic system put in, a lot of projects have been started and a lot of small incremental changes have been made in the last week, but nothing that I could be like, oh, this is super flashy, or this is super exciting, or, this is the headline shot. So I hope you guys don't mind that there's quite a lot going on, but it's all kind of, oh, look at this update for a couple minutes, and oh, look at that update for a couple minutes. So I've tried to organize them and make them flow as consistently as possible. This was a bit of a challenge for me to figure out how to put these all together, so if you have feedback on how to do a video like this in future, I would welcome it in the comments below. So we're going to start our tour on the inside. Normally I tell you guys what's going on at the outside of the house, but this time I want to start with what's going on the inside, because there's actually quite a lot going on both floors of the house. So let's start by coming in the main door from the front road into the living room. So here we are in the living room, and the first thing that is different is that they have started framing in this half wall. Originally we were going to have them take out this entire wall, which is why you can see a rip basically in the ceiling where they took out a wall. But because the weight of the mortar that they used to put the shower base in had resettled the house, this now needs to stay as a support, and so does that. And so James is putting in a half wall here. So this is what the wall looks like before it's all finished out. So as you come in the door off of the driveway, which is behind me, this is the room you'll walk into. So there'll be a big open space right here to the living room stroke TV room, and then there'll be a half wall there. And then here is where the wood stove is going to go, and they've put up the special sheetrock. You have to put, normal sheetrock is a little bit thinner than this. This is 5/8 of an inch thick, and that is required to go when you have a wood stove on the other side. So this sheetrock is thicker than your average bear, so to speak. The other thing that James has discovered is what's behind our wall. So the reason that these two squares of the wall are cut out is because these are where we wanted 2 extra outlets put in. We have just now revised that statement because these walls are really thick. So there's a layer of sheetrock here, and then there's this wood layer, and then there's another layer of older wood underneath it. And so in order to run new wiring through this wall, James would have to take the entire wall apart because there aren't existing channels. He can run new wire through here because those channels already exist in the wall and new wire can be put through, but it doesn't make sense for him to take this entire wall apart. We don't have the budget for him to take this entire wall apart just to put in 2 extra outlets. We were envisioning that over here would be like the appliance table or counter, and we can just as easily put a power strip here from the existing outlet as have additional outlets available. So that is what we're going to do. This is the layer that's underneath the sheetrock. This is the only sheetrocked wall in this extension. Everything else is paneling, like wood paneling. Finish on this feels like a very kind of faux wood finish. So I was hoping that looking at these would give us some idea of how old the walls are. And I think if you're a wall expert, you probably would know something about how old these are based on how they look, but I am not a wall expert. And then the other update in the kitchen, if you look up, you will no longer see a brick chimney here. They took it out and they saved quite a lot of the bricks. And this, you'll notice this is part of the foundation that was holding it up. One of the guys touched it when they started working on it and it started falling apart. So James thinks it would have come down in another few weeks anyway. And that would have been a big mess because the brick chimney was quite substantial. It started, right above there, and it went all the way up to just below the roof line. So that was about, what, 3 or 4 feet tall by 1.5 feet wide of solid red brick all the way around. So I'm glad that we discovered it when we did and took it out when we did. The other change here is the change in the door to nowhere, which, like many of you, I am very fond of, and I wish we could keep this as a door. But James, our general contractor, and the permit inspector, who's also the certificate of occupancy inspector, when he was here, he was very clear that because this is a floor off the ground without anything underneath here, this cannot remain a door for health and safety reasons. And so James is framing in a window and a wall. So there'll be a wall down there and a big, beautiful window here instead. I would love at some point to build a covered porch off of here, because this is the best view of the property, the actual woodsy part of the property, and also because it's the side that's farthest away from the road and would therefore be the least noisy. And also having a screened in porch would be a place where the cat could go out and play, right, and be, giant catio. But that involves, building up on pilings and pillars and all that stuff, which we just don't have the funds to do right now. So for now, it becomes a window, and at some point we may take the window out and put a door back in, but that will be many years down the road. One of the other changes, and I think this is actually a really good place to see it, on the outdoor side, they've been working on the pile of barn debris. So this is substantially less debris than when I was here a couple of weeks ago. And some of the stuff they've been saving in burn piles. They got permission from the county to do a burn back here. And then those two green humps there, which were in the last video as well, those are our septic tank. So from up here, which is one of the reasons I'm really glad that we have a window going in here, from up here you can really get a sense of how much they have done with the landscape. And one of the things that Peter and I have talked about is putting clover down here, because clover is a ground cover like grass, but unlike grass, it grows to a certain height and stops and would not need to be mowed. So what we would like to do is seed this whole area with clover. Eventually we're going to build a food forest on the property, but for now, if the choice is bare dirt, grass, or clover, we definitely want to go with clover. And James has a supplier that he knows that does a really good, inexpensive bulk purchase of clover. So I think James is going to hook us up with 50 pounds of clover seed and then some straw or hay to go over the top of it, because we are in theory getting close to frost, and if those seeds aren't protected in some way, they're going to freeze and not germinate and therefore waste the whole process. I will say that Jeff did a great job smoothing all of this out, and all of that dirt pile that we thought we were going to have, there is some dirt down there, but it's not a lot, to be frank. Almost all of the dirt that came out from digging out the septic tank and the sand trap and the drain field, a lot of it ended up being put out here and being used to level out this slope. And I see also a chunk of it was put here. So all of that fussing about where we're going to put this huge pile of extra dirt really didn't end up needing to be done. There's just a tiny little pile down there, and that's it. So I'm not sure this is going to show up very well on camera, but this is the first time I have come upstairs and not been able to put my hand just through the wall studs into the bathroom on the other side. This makes a huge difference to the space. Definitely, obviously more narrow, and also more professional, more finished. This is going to be an actual wall that we're going to be using and going up and down, and that feels like progress. So that's very exciting to see the walls going in. Who ever thought I'd be so excited about a wall? So one of the primary missions that we are on today is to take the magic Sherwin-Williams color swatch and figure out which of the 3 colors we think this is, and then also figure out how to match that with the roof. So we're going to take the color swatches, and we're going to take this, which is a spare piece of shingling, and do a little bit more research. It's quite possible that that color green inside is not a Sherwin-Williams paint green, and we may not find an exact match in that color palette. So the question will be how much research we want to do to find an exact match. But this will be a great help, because we have pictures of the roof, but that's really hard to take a picture and compare it to the swatch in front of you and see if the colors are closely aligned. So this will be a great help. So this is interesting. I'm in the master bedroom now, and this is the floor grate between us and the living room below. And James has taken the grating off, and you can look in and see trying not to drop the phone. You can see what they lined it with. The floor is actually quite a bit thicker than I would have imagined, which makes me feel more solid, honestly. One of the things that you'll notice in here is that they've been taking the radiators off the walls. We're getting rid of the old heating system that was in here because we don't need it anymore. We're going to put in a mini split system instead. And so pleasantly surprised to see that they've taken the radiators themselves out, and they'll be taking off the backings next, but the radiators could actually be sold. So everywhere you look, you can see that the old radiators have been taken out. I have to say that's very satisfying. I'm a little bit terrified to find out what's behind there. I'm really hoping they just put them in over an existing wall, and the existing wall is great, but if they didn't, we'll have to fix it. Downstairs now in the living room, this is one of the few places, maybe one of the only places, where they've taken off the backing of the radiators, and there is a baseboard behind them. And looks like, yeah, and then something that they wallpapered over, which you can see here is kind of coming off. So one of the things that we intend to do once we're settled in our next temporary short-term rental is come in here and start working on stripping the wallpaper where it needs to be stripped. But it's good to know, I'm happy to see that there are baseboards behind here, and I'm hoping that's true for most of the house because that will make life a lot easier. One of the biggest projects, there's James, our general contractor, looking oh so delightful. The gutters are going on, so here you can see that we're in progress along the porch. James is working on one of the downspouts, but the upper line here has been done, and if I walk around the house, the downspout is in. So figuring out where to put the downspout on this side of the house was a little bit interesting because of the kitchen extension. So it's going to come down there. It's not going to have the greatest view out that window, but that's the window that's in that little alcove at the top of the stairs, which I don't think we're going to be sitting and staring out of much anyway. So, and then the gutters are going to go all the way around the edge of the kitchen extension as well, and around the porch. But yes, gutters are going on. The last thing is our ongoing adventure with mail. So if you will recall, we had some trouble getting mail service set up here, and then we went up to the post office and it was fine, and we signed a form that said please start delivering mail here, and we got mail a couple days after that, and then we didn't get any mail at all for about 2 weeks, and then we got a big chunk of mail about 2 weeks later, and then we hadn't gotten any mail again. So when we were here last week, Peter actually got a hold of the post office on Friday, and it turns out that the box is in fact too far from the road for them to be able to deliver from the truck, which we had thought might be the case but weren't sure. And so we've been working with the local post office to figure out what to do. Happily, our neighbor across the street, Levon, is a postal carrier on another route near here, so he's been very helpful with suggestions and advice. So what we are going to do is resync a mailbox. This is not sunk properly. They simply put a T-post in the ground and attach the wood to the T-post. What you need to do is actually mortar it in place so that when the snow comes, because the snowplows are going to come up here and that heavy wet snow is going to hit it, and it needs to be anchored by something so it doesn't just fall over. So James said he can do that for us. He's going to go ahead and replace the whole pole structure, and then we're going to get a new box for us, which we were going to do anyway, because as you can see, the box is rusting out. Also, because we're on a rural route, they won't deliver any packages to the house. So if the package doesn't fit in the mailbox, it goes back to the post office, and we have to go to the post office and pick it up, which will not be a big deal because the post office is 5 minutes up the road from here. But right now, for the next week, while we're not living in this area, that is kind of a big deal. And then this is the barn. Pile of stuff that was taken down from the barn, and I can see for the first time the shed that they talked about that was behind the barn. We'll have to deal with that at some point in the future. It's like a garden shed or something. I don't know if you can see it. It's not really showing up very well on camera, but it's the structure right behind him there. There's like a little garden shed or something, which I had been told was there but hadn't actually gotten to the back of the property. yet to see. So still a lot of debris, but what they have taken out is the piles of junk. So like the bicycle that was here, lots of the piles of paper that were here, that stuff has all been removed. So I'm down here at the foot of the dirt and brush pile, and I'm looking into the woods, which is the first time you can look into the woods because it's been so verdant over the summer that you couldn't see through. I'm seeing a number of things they're going to need future tending to. First of all, I don't know if you can see it, but there's something blue there, like a tarp or something buried. There's a trash can that I saw upturned over there. There's whatever this is. Oh yeah, the trash can is kind of behind this tree here in the distance. It's that teal thing you can see right there. Somewhere in the back corner there is our corner marker for the property. And I think once the winter comes, we'll be able to get back there and see it. I also have a suspicion that we're going to find a bunch more stuff. Like maybe that's the shed that I was told about and not the one behind the barn. I'm not 100% certain, but I have a suspicion that once we get back in there, we're going to find some stuff. And there is some sort of, I don't know, there's a rock piling of some kind behind this in the distance, and I don't know what that is. So I hadn't realized that the stream bed basically comes around, so it's at the back of the property, and then there's a channel that cuts around here, around this hump, and goes off that way. And I don't yet know if that's the main stream or if that's a side channel and the main stream goes on the other side of the hump. So things to explore with the changing of the seasons, which is kind of nice because I love summer and I love things to be verdant and growing, but it is a benefit of the changing season to explore in a way that is a little bit more difficult in high summer. So now I'm coming up on our leach field, which is much taller than it was previously. I'm guessing actually this is where quite a lot of the dirt came from. But look, you can actually see through the trees to Karen's house behind us, which was again not true in high summer. So somewhere back there is our property line. I don't see any junk at the moment, although I am curious. Let me go over here. So I'm going to stand here on the taller part. So this is this junk that I was looking at right behind the pile. It looks like some kind of metal. And there's the garbage can over there. So yeah, there's definitely going to be stuff to haul out of here. So that is it for today. Thank you for coming along on our second October adventure. Peter and I were talking on the way here about how much getting in here on October 1st actually meant to us, and we didn't really think about it until October 1st came and went and we weren't in. The list of projects that need to be done is a finite list. It's maybe about 15 or 20 items long, and we have 6 weeks to get them done. So on the one hand, it feels very doable and possible, and on the other hand, even though we see progress out here every time we come, very few things are actually done when we come. Everything has moved forward, but except for the roof, we haven't really crossed, and the septic system, we haven't really crossed off a lot of things from our list. So I'm hoping that like a lot of projects, everything is in, and then everything kind of finishes all at once and bam, bam, bam. All these things that were in progress are just done and finished, and we're going to come in, one of these visits will come in and we'll be like, oh my gosh, 5 projects were done. So with the changing of the seasons, we're obviously paying attention to the weather a bit more. The Farmer's Almanac said that there was a 30% chance of first frost by the 1st of October. It is now the 9th of October, and I think the coldest it's been is about 40 degrees. It is supposed to dip into the upper 30s. And obviously, the house, for example, doesn't have that window framed in the kitchen yet, so that's open to the elements. So we are rushing against time to get the outside things done before it freezes, because things like weather stripping, gutters, mortar that needs to set, all of that stuff does not work well if it's consistently around freezing. So there's definitely a feeling of both an endless kind of waiting for things to be done and also a definite busyness and rushing against the clock. It's a really weird combination of feelings. If you have done a reno before, maybe you can let me know in the comments if this is a normal feeling to be having at this term in the process. I had expected to feel impatient. I had not expected to feel the duality of both. Everything is moving far too slowly, and at the same time, we're rushing to get everything done. So if that's normal, please let me know in the comments below. And thank you, as always, for hanging out with me. I really appreciate bringing you along on the journey, and I will see you next week. Bye for now.